Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Today I wanted to go over many of the new permits that have been filed recently by Tesla. But as you'll see here momentarily, there are just so many permits that are covering what is going on inside the factory to prepare new production lines and extend the production footprint in the vertical and horizontal, and also the much of the construction that we're seeing all over the site to the north end, south end, and on the west side as well. So I decided to break this into two different parts. Today we'll go over part one of the permits, and then I will follow up on the next video. So let's get started. Beginning on the north side, where this construction project has been underway for a few months, you'll recall that I pulled some permits, and it was originally called the Central Campus Support Facility, but I had heard that this was redesignated as the Cortex 2.0, and that I wanted to find permits to show that. Originally, this was the group term for this construction project with 3 facilities and 2 water tanks. But when that was changed to Cortex 2, we saw on the ground that that was no longer the case, and it's at least one large structure. Now, with these permits here, it now clearly says Cortex 2.0. This particular permit is for the underground mains. Another permit is talking about the foundations, and that is what we're seeing here with this image. That includes the perimeter grade beam and the footings. And also, we see this third permit with the Cortex 2 building shell. That's the steel structure that is being erected on top of the foundations and the perimeter grade beam. There is room for a lot more changes and construction. That'll be something I continue to monitor, but I'm glad to be at least able to show you permits now that do in fact refer to this as Cortex 2.0. Now we're going to go down to the south end extension of Giga Texas. And as you recall, this was for Cortex 1.0. Originally, this was described as a location for administrative offices, but that was changed for the Cortex 1.0 installation. However, a new permit talks about preliminary steel for the headquarters. And I believe that this is going to be adding more administration building structures inside, and this is going to expand the number of offices and administrative capabilities that they have for the headquarters. And this is going to allow the use of extra space that Cortex 1 did not need to use. There is a lot of space there. In addition to that, there is another permit. This is phase 2, the data center infrastructure, and this is pretty much to complete the rest of the expansion inside, and also in conjunction with that headquarters steel erection that's going on inside. So definitely something to watch as Tesla completes this part of the factory. Our next stop is on the east side at the body and white part of the facility. And we've been watching a lot of construction material being taken into that temporary platform on the second floor. Also the work that's going on that secondary main entrance with all that plywood on those doors. Now, we've been seeing a lot of work with mezzanines being assembled and installed inside this part of the factory. This particular permit talks about floor reinforcement and concrete pads, and this hints at some robotic assembly stations, or at least some very heavy equipment that's going to be installed in addition to all of those mezzanines and additional work to expand the space and also expand the second floor into multiple different floors. Now going to the west side, directly opposite of the body in white, is the General Assembly, both General Assembly 1 and 2, which is also referred to as GAX. And we see that there are several permits, one with a 3D print lab relocation and the cyber body off changes. Also, this is the subframe line updates, and this seems to match up with those new castings for the robotaxi or cybercab that calls them rear subframes. We also see that the legacy drive unit is being demolished, and that is to upgrade those systems for new equipment and also new drive lines. And then finally, this permit, which is brand new and awaiting a response, it's not completed yet. It's talking about the 5DU space readiness, and this has to do with the permit for preparing a specific space, possibly a 5th designated unit 5DU for operational unit. This is related to manufacturing or assembly production lines and is another part of the factory that is being expanded, most likely for new vehicles and the Cybercab. And the final permit that I want to talk about has to do with the Welcome and Visitors Center. We've been watching this construction area just to the northwest of the factory near Tesla Road. And as I had mentioned, I had word that this was going to be the Welcome Center. Been able to get the permits now to assure that is in fact the case. This is the permit for that Welcome Center. Its code is WCT8. And this is going to be really easily accessible from Tesla Road for the general public. I also found out that there are 2 more permits that have to do with the Employee and Visitor Center. And this is one of those 2 permits. Another one is coming up here. I don't know if these are going to be part of the exact same facility, or maybe it will be a separate facility joined together or built on this particular site. In any case, it looks like Tesla is definitely preparing for both the public and new employees to have that Welcome and Visitor Center. And I think that's going to be really great for all of us in future events here at Giga Texas. So that'll bring a close to the permit part 1 discussion on this video. Part 2 has a lot more permits to go over that are very interesting and important for the future of Tesla and Giga Texas. So we'll cover that on my next video. In the meantime, let's get in the drone. Let's fly around and see what Giga Texas looks like today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good morning from a beautiful day here at Giga Texas. A nice way to start the work week. And of course, the sun is just coming up over the horizon. It is early, but I did notice that production was already geared up for the day, which is a very good sign. So that's one positive way to begin. And then I decided I was going to come over here on the northwest side, take a look at the Welcome Center construction site just next to Tesla Road, which is the bottom left of the screen. And with this image, you can see where we are in relation to the main factory. Now, we did talk about the permits for the Welcome Center, also for the Employee Visitor Center, and this is the construction site for that. We do see geotextile membranes have been laid down on 2 different layers of dirt, and that is what is going on here in the center and left-hand side of the screen. We have some more of the area that needs to have the grade improved and raised on the right-hand side of the screen. And then here we see some of the work that is going on this part. Now it's got an interesting kind of arrangement with the dirt just on the bottom, but I think that's just because they're spreading it right now. It's not a indication of construction at this point in time. And here's where all of the steel is being stored temporarily, just north of the Evapco fan units. And looking off to the top left is that West Support facility with the outbound lot and the end of line facility. And right here again is what I've been watching just to see what's going to happen with all of this equipment and where it's going to be used on the site. Now, as we cross over this central road, another look at this material staging yard, and it still just looks like it's slowly being cleaned up, less and less material. They also have that drive path in between that kind of comes around next to these tents, so that may be one of the reasons why they've moved a lot of the equipment away. Now, as we continue to fly to the south, we do note that most of the vehicles in the outbound lot were shipped off this weekend, as is normal. And production is just started up again today, and we see some of the Cybertrucks getting ready to go into the end of line for processing. On the left-hand side of the screen, we see a Model Y autonomously driving from the factory over to lane number 1, and there were several of these on the way over. You might see a few of them at the top of the screen coming in, and I noticed that it was both Model Ys and Cybertrucks that were coming over to this side of the factory. Now, I was flying right about 7 o'clock in the morning, and normally we would not see the vehicles moving quite yet, but as you can tell, they're being actively tested on the ramp on the bottom of the screen, and we'll see more of them as I turn towards the south, and this is just a great sign. We also see just a small group of vehicles in the outbound lot in the middle center of the screen. Those are just waiting for transportation, and they'll continue to fill up this entire outbound lot during the week. And as I mentioned, here's some Cybertrucks that are coming over today, and more on the left-hand side of the screen. So overall, production is going well. I kind of been talking about production because there have been a few mainstream media and social media accounts claiming that the production was not happening at Giga Texas this week. That is not true, and I don't know where they got their information, but certainly not from what I'm seeing here on the actual site. So as we come over to this part of the site on the west side of the West Support Facility, just looking at all of this equipment and stored materials, I wanted to see what was going on with all of the transformers, and very recently more of them have been delivered here. It doesn't look like there's been any change over the weekend, but I will continue to monitor this during the week, and we'll see if even more of them arrive. Now, in recent past, Elon was talking about one of the biggest constraints for AI was transformers and the electrical power needed to run the data centers. And because of that, with all of the transformers that we're seeing here on site, it does seem like Tesla's trying to get ahead of the game by collecting as many transformers as possible for future use. Now at the bottom of the screen, we see these brown wrapped items. Those are parts of a stamping press. We did see in the video intro that there is some stamping press modifications going on with a high pressure cooling unit, and perhaps that is related to those stamping machine parts waiting for assembly. Can't really say for sure, but just trying to match up what we see with the permits. Now that clearing is still getting some dirt installed, but not a lot of extra work right now. As I kind of turn around and kind of play tag with the sun, try to show you what is going on here at this material staging yard. Next to the tent, again, all of those concrete vault items and pipe segments have been moved away, and more steel around the periphery of this site. In the middle here is more of the transformers. On the left-hand side is the grouping of new transformers that have recently been delivered as well. And I don't have a straight number that I've calculated for all of these, but there are significant amounts. We also see different kinds of transformers here, so it looks like they may be sourcing them from different manufacturers. As I fly it back up over the power lines and over the material staging yard, we can look across and see the West Warehouse on Wheels. A lot of those trailers, and what this is, just as a reminder for those who may be new, the Warehouse on Wheels is a concept where they use trailers for the warehousing, and the trucks are brought in here. They drop off the full trailers, pick up the empty trailers and leave, and then they use yard trucks to move these over when needed for the production. It's very efficient, and it saves factory floor space. The Cyber Tunnel was busy just before I got here to get that video, but I did see some vehicles exiting through there. And then here is another Model Y autonomously driving from the factory over to the end-of-line facility. And that is the route that they follow. It's, again, all autonomous from the factory going down the ramp through this area. And there's another one on the right-hand side of the screen. As we get closer to the caisson operation here, we do still see some more of the concrete pipe segments. They are lowering them down into the caisson, and the hydraulic rams are still pushing them through the bore. But we do have a new development, and I will show you in a moment, on the south side of the Colorado River. And what we're seeing is that this is where the tunnel boring machine began the bore. It worked its way to the south. These pipe segments are pushed in to line the tunnel, and now on the south side of the Colorado River in a second caisson, that tunnel boring machine has punched its way through. So we do know that this tunnel that allows a connection between this caisson here and the one across the Colorado River, which you can just start seeing coming into view next to that yellow crane, are now physically connected. So let me maneuver around here, and I'll bring the drone kind of to a lower altitude and show you what is going on here with this caisson and that tunnel boring operation. If you can tell from this caisson, looking up to the top of the screen is the one that we just came from. It is on a direct line, and as I maneuver the drone down even closer, I'll point it down into the base of this caisson. And if you pay attention to the thicker ring at the ground level, you'll see that hole where the tunnel boring machine has come through, some of the debris for it, and this is where those pipe segments are connecting. Now, I don't know, but it is possible that they will continue the boring to the south here, connecting this caisson to yet another one further to the south. So that'll be something I will watch. And I know the common question is what are the caissons for? It's a water intercept system, which improves and increases the overall water management system for the site. As we get down lower here on the other side of the bridge, we see this pipe extending through this opening. This is where horizontal drilling went underneath the road. It connects up near where this secondary caisson is located, but it does not connect to that caisson. And then it will also work its way along the berm all the way to the north, where we see some additional trench work and pipe being installed. Here is a close look at this caisson. I'll try to zoom in, and you can see that it's just got some water in it, but otherwise there are no connections, there's no tunnel boring, and there's no work going on at the moment within this particular caisson. We also see some more trench work, trench boxes, and some work in this extra area, and I think this is going to connect to that berm work we'll see here later. Another Model Y driving autonomously on the road, heading over to the outbound lot. And as I maneuver here on the south end, a nice look at the south end of the factory, all of the glass wall and the very green grass that has been planted here. It looks like there are some landscapers at work right next to this tunnel exit. And we'll see if they add any more landscaping materials. As we pass along the southwest corner, this is the opening on this part of the building. They are framing it in, but I have not seen any changes yet. So we'll continue past that along this west side, and most of the materials have been cleared off of here. And sorry for the sun banding there, but I'll bring the drone down into the shadow, get a good view here into this drive path, the black walls to make it match up with the window line, the railing where that drive path is, and just some other features here. This is a nice view of the new windows that were installed to connect the two window lines. And we still see a plywood panel on the lower level waiting for glass, and on the top level they've been repairing the lower wall concrete panel, and they've installed the one on the top, and then soon they'll be able to put the mounts and put glass through that area and complete this connection. They'll also have to stain the new concrete in those angle forms with the new windows. As I come up to the roof, this is a good view on the right-hand side of the screen of that new line of solar panels. I did not see much activity on that this morning, so instead we'll continue to fly over the power lines and look at the east side of stamping. Again, this is that section with that permit that talked about that high pressure cooling unit being installed into stamping 2, preparing for the 5th stamping machine section. As I zoom in, this is the trench work that is being done here on the east side, that new temporary platform that is going to be used for materials to be brought into this south end, and a nice view of the cooling unit. Now, this south end is where we talked about that permit for the headquarters steel assembly inside, and that, in addition to finishing up the Cortex 1.0 installation, is all going on per the permits. And then that headquarters steel assembly inside should be adding additional administrative space to this new end of the building. So let's maneuver the drone around toward the east, and we'll take a look at where some pipes are being manufactured, possibly for that stamping permit that we discussed. Here on the east side, in these kind of tent-like structures, is the workshops where they've been manufacturing and fashioning the pipes. You can see a few of them already being worked on today, and a few other ones are being stored on the outside. But these pipes potentially are part of that high-pressure cooling unit for the Stamping 2, and we've seen some of those being maneuvered into the factory up on some of the temporary platforms before. So we'll continue to monitor that, but I believe that is related to that permit. The parking garage still has the privacy fence on the ground floor here on the east side. We see one vehicle on the roof. I don't know if it was doing anything or not, but not a lot of testing activity, at least observable today at this time on Monday. More of the materials being stored here on the ground. I want to correct one thing. Those trailers on the left are just contractor trailers. They are not security. The security trailers are being put into the E4 parking lot, which is the parking lot just to the north here, and I will show you more of that here in a moment. But I did want to spend some time on this section with this platform. You can see that one of the wall panels was removed. This is the area of body in white that they've added mezzanine levels across the entire area. That's increased the vertical production capabilities on this part of the factory. And then you can see that other temporary platform on the second floor. And this is where a lot of those building materials and then equipment are being brought in to finish off this part of the factory. There are no windows, and it is a place that is not normally seen by the public, so there's a lot of speculation of what is going on in there, but it's definitely a production line of some sort. Another change here is one of the two tents for the charging testing has been removed, so there's now only one. I'm not sure what that actually signifies. As we look closer back at the body in white section of the building, we see that smaller temporary platform and the work that's being done on that glass secondary entrance. So I'm going to maneuver the drone back over to the west side where we'll see something very interesting. Now, my last video, I had a viewer that asked the question about this vehicle under the car cover and if I knew what it was. I didn't really spend much time on that video, but based on that question and looking at some pictures, I thought, well, this might be interesting. So here's what it looks like. And what makes this strange is that it looks like a Model Y, but without any glass or any of the body panels, and also without the rear quarter panel, which is normally welded on. We can see that the kind of the rocker panels between the wheels looks unpainted. And also the wheels are of the older generation Model Y. And as I continue to maneuver around, you can just get a good sense of what this looks like. You compare the size to the Model 3 next to it. And I don't know if this is just a rejected test, a test product, if it's something that they are doing some additional work on, or really what this is. But I will let you let me know in the comments what you believe this might be, if it is significant or if it's just another test item and nothing to be concerned about. But I did find it interesting, and I just wanted to ask or thank you, my viewer, for pointing that out, and I was able to spend a little bit more time on that today. Now, as we continue to fly to the north, we can see another white Model Y coming out of the factory and driving autonomously, ending up over at that west end of line facility. And we get about one of these per minute or so leaving the factory and immediately drives autonomously, so they don't stack up there anymore. This temporary or new platform looks like they're getting ready to bring some more equipment up onto that section where they are doing additional work inside, adding mezzanines and more capability for production as well, just similar to what we saw in the body in white. This berm, this excavation work and the trenching is related to those pipes that we saw on the far south end. And I think this is just connecting the entire length of this part of the factory. And I believe that it is to try to increase the overall capacity of their treated water system, in addition to some conduit. Speaking of deliveries, on this truck is a few more items that are being brought into the 4680 cell portion of the factory. Looks like this might be racking systems, perhaps for batteries, perhaps for materials. Really hard to say for sure, but it is pretty neat to see that that work is continuing on the inside of 4680s as well. Now I'm trying to do the maneuver around to avoid as much of that banding from the sun as possible. This also gives us a nice view to the south along the berm where they've already completed most of the trench work, and you can see that orange fence line where they are continuing to do some final work. The north end of the 4680 cell portion looks like this today. There is a lot of work in the inside, but I don't see a lot of materials or equipment on the outside right now. Next to the paint shop north wall, we see those racks with the paint stands for the Model Y bumpers. And we also see more of the racks for castings, including this kind of covered rack mount system that serves as kind of an entrance to those 3 loading bays on that north corner of casting. Here are more of the rack mounts and some of them with castings. Now, we did see on the last weekend or last video, all of these were filled with racks, with castings in the racks, and a lot of them are now empty today, so that's a great sign for production as well. Now, as I continue to maneuver here on this side of the melt plant on the right hand side of the screen, there's a lot of detail, a lot of items to look at. On the bottom of the screen are parts to what I think is a gigapress. We see the wheel recycling work underway, more of the trimmed pieces of the castings being prepared, and also some of them look like they had been melted down into large ingots. And then also here we see more of the castings that are marked RT-TX, both the rear subframe and the front underbody. I think that's for the Cybercab. And here's another close look at the untrimmed ones and these rack mounts. And as I turn back around, a nice view into the melt center and what this looks like here today with more of the equipment underneath this part of the overhang waiting for installation. So I'm going to bring the drone up to a higher altitude, kind of pivot the view down to the ground and give you a bird's eye look at what is going on here with that melt center, all of the castings, the baghouse filtration plant, and just more of the materials that are being stockpiled here. So while we are here also, I wanted to maneuver the drone back over to this part of the parking lot. Now, in part 2 of my permit discussion on my next video, we'll talk about all the permits related to these trailers. But bottom line is these new trailers are to allow the trailers at the top of the screen to be relocated, and all of those temporary offices for Tesla to come to this location and allow more of the construction on the north side. This is going to include the security offices, but also the new hire orientation, training, and other functions. This is where that has been taking place for the last few years, but clearly it now needs to move because of all of the construction throughout this location. So we'll see all of this operation shutting down soon, and I'll give you more details on the next video. The Megapack 2 is also seeing a lot of work today. Not only are they working on the connections and wiring up the transformers and the Megapacks, but they are also delivering and installing new equipment. We'll see this very large cabinet on the north end. It's kind of on that raised platform. And as I continue to fly to the north and maneuver the drone to look back across the Megapacks, I'll give you a nice zoomed in view and you'll get a good chance to see what this particular cabinet looks like. There's a number of doors on the north end, and you can see the kind of the handles for them to open them up. And with this close-in view, you can get a good look at some of the markings. And overall, I believe this is one of the control trailers for all of the Megapacks and transformers, and it also differs from the original Megapack on the upper right, as it did not have that. Instead, it had kind of an electrical switchyard instead of that trailer. So very interesting that they have a different approach to that installation. As I pull away to the north, first with an overall view, you can see the work that is being done to prepare this graded section for that switchyard expansion. And as we talked about in the intro, there is that permit. LCRA, or the Lower Colorado River Authority, is responsible for this project, and they are continuing to prepare all of this land for that expansion work. As I bring the drone down in lower, give you a view of what they are doing here. Essentially, the old drainage pipe and system is being removed, and you can see some of the sections in the upper right. This is because that's not suitable to build an electrical switch yard over those pipes, so they have to remove them, and that's part of the relocation of the underground water management system that will connect all of this over to the east side of the cathode at that filtration pond. While we're here, I'll bring the drone up to a higher altitude and give you a look at this construction site. As we talked about in the intro, the permits are now officially calling this Cortex 2.0, and we saw the permits about the underground water system, also the foundations and the steel superstructure. And you can also tell that the work is progressing quite quickly here, and the roof decking is now about 50% of the eventual length of the building. We still have more of the beams and column section here without the roof decking, but it is pre-positioned for installation, and the cranes are getting ready to maneuver more of the steel onto the footings and extend this structure further to the north. Also, the perimeter grade beam looks like it is being buried up to the grade on both sides, and that is kind of just finalizing this and ready for that steel assembly. Once the steel is all assembled, then they will start working on the ground slab on the inside, and they'll be installing the wall panels. The one thing I don't know right now, but I'm kind of curious, is if the wall panels are going to be concrete, very much like what we see here with the die shop, or if they're going to be something else. Speaking of the die shop, another permit that we will discuss in part 2 has to do with the EDM machines that are being installed in this section, and that's related also to the concrete slab rework and strengthening that is being done in the middle part of that facility. And all of that is to support the die for the Giga presses for their maintenance, manufacture, testing, and also modification. This is a good view on the ground of some of the materials that are related for the underground water management system. And once all that is done, we'll see Tesla Road come through this section of the site. Crash testing facility continues to be busy, and they've been testing pretty much every vehicle that is within the lineup for Tesla, and perhaps they're testing some future vehicles as well, although I do not see that right now on the outside. I do have 2 new permits that are of big interest for new vehicles that relate to the battery cathode building, and we'll talk about that on part 2 in my next video. But as I continue to pull away, we see more of the steel corrugated pipes and segments for that underground water management system being stored here next to the cell testing lab. And a quick look to the north of this section where we see some of the broken up old concrete, some dirt that's being stockpiled, some concrete segments on the bottom right from the south end where the extension has been built, and more materials here on the northeast. As we get in closer to the battery cathode plant itself, we can kind of look around the wall, see what it looks like as it's joining in on the west side with that new construction project. And then also looking down on the cooling plant, it appears to be operational again today. One of the big indicators besides the fans that are operating is on the left-hand side, will be coming into view shortly, the vaporizers, and you will see frost on all of them. And this is a great sign that they are operational, turning the cryogenic fluids into a gaseous form, which is a part of the manufacturing process. So that's a lot to see, a lot to talk about, and also the permits on the intro. But hopefully all of this view, the discussion, and information really helps put into context what is going on here at Giga Texas now and what we can expect into the future as construction and expansion work continues. So with that, that'll bring us to an end for the drone flight today. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great week. Take care.